Hello, and welcome to this video on the heritability of the Force. Watching the most recent Star Wars movie, questions exist as to the sudden changes to how the Force works. Suddenly, everyone and their dog can use it and use it well, with little to no training, whereas in the past, children were taken into the cult of the Jedi at an early age to facilitate the indoctrination to their way of thinking and to provide the essential education in the range of Jedi skills. It was always a question of why there was not a larger pool of Jedi, and why they were so aggressive in their training regimes. After a little thought, there may be a very simple answer. Just a warning, but this may contain spoilers for you if you are not up to date. One caveat to this video is that the newest films will be ignored, as they conflate contradictory canon and create a nearly impossible mess as far as the Force is concerned. In this universe, the Jedi Code stipulates detachment from both the world and others. This is one reason why they have young children begin at the Academy, training them to be detached and separate from the world. This has a range of effects. Other than making the Jedi an increasingly obsolete structure, it has a second, more important impact. It reduces the pool of Force-positive gene carriers who will, or in this case will not, reproduce. It cannot be a sex-linked chromosome gene, as there seems to be no particular gender bias, slightly higher in males, but not particularly so. So how would this non-gendered allele work? First, it is likely to be a recessive allele, as its occurrence is diminishing over time, meaning that it appears to be bred out of the population at large. Let's take a look at the Anakin family tree as an example of this particular process. Anakin comes from a pregnancy made possible by the Force. Let's assume that is untrue and that it was a case of aparthogenesis. A somewhat more likely candidate. This is where the mother gives birth to the child using two of her own cells. This has created a doubling of the Force-positive genes from his mother. This makes him a double positive carrier. Padme has no obvious Force powers, but may have some degree of Force receptiveness. This does not mean she is not Force allele positive, only that it removes the possibility of it being a dominant allele. If she were a carrier of a dominant allele, it would be clear during the early development testing for the Force or in later life. She would be a single positive carrier. This also means that one of her parents carried this particular gene. This is further reinforced by her cousin's lack of Force powers. What about their children, the non-monozygotic twins? Clearly, Luke is Force positive. Leia is also recognized as being Force positive. This further supports the idea of a recessive allele. If Luke had received the recessive allele from Padme, and he definitely received the other allele from his father, it would make him a double positive carrier. Similarly, if Leia received the same gene as Luke, then she would also have to receive the Force positive gene from her father. Luke is a dead end at this stage, as he has no offspring within the movies themselves. Leia, on the other hand, has Kylo Ren, yet another strong Force user. It can be assumed that Han Solo is likely to have a degree of Force sensitivity, but not be strong in the Force. This means this is also likely to be a carrier of the allele, as seen as Padme. As with his parents, Kylo is likely to have inherited the positive gene from both parents. This is an interesting conservation of the genes, as the successive generations have managed to maintain the same recessive gene that would normally disappear in a population. This could be owing to similar circumstances to those of the royal families in Europe. Through escalation of social status, carriers with the same genes congregate. Now, contrast this to either a dominant or random mutation of genes. In the case of a dominant allele, it would not matter which of the parents carried the gene for the Force. The offspring would be Force power positive, something not seen in the Star Wars universe. In fact, as stated, the converse is true with a dwindling population of Force positive or Force power users. Since the population of Force sensitivity individuals is dwindling, it cannot be a dominant allele. The other option is that of random mutations. This makes less sense given how stable the pattern of Force sensitivity individuals is. If it was random mutations, it would require a specific gene that is generally not stable across the entire universe, in every species within it. This will need a highly conserved gene, and these are generally very stable as a consequence of their existence across species, or perhaps more accurately, the reason many species have it is because it is highly stable. Add to that, the population is in flux downwards, rather than in constant fluctuation within a narrow range, the randomness of mutation is clearly not having an effect on the ability of the force to be present. This contradiction is difficult to reconcile with anything but a recessive gene. This all has considerably darker implications for the Star Wars universe. From this, a simple conclusion is inevitable. The Jedi and their temple are a self-destructive eugenics program. They are removing their own distinctive gene from the larger population through a specific lack of selective breeding. On the other hand, a selective breeding program would create a society of superforce users that could be bred for either nefarious or incredibly altruistic purposes. Thank you for watching this video. Please post any comments, questions, or suggestions you may have below.